What do you think about Donald Trump running for president again?
You know, I think that's the past. And I think that we have to march into the future. And I think there are very talented people in this country on the Republican side that can run. So I will go, look in the future rather than in a rear mirror.
Arnold Schwarzenegger just went full Terminator on Donald Trump during a live TV appearance. One moment he was discussing politics, and the next he was verbally bench-pressing Trump's ego like it was leg day. From throwing shady side glances to going straight into roast mode, Arnold didn't hold back, and honestly, it was a thing of beauty. Trump's hair may never be the same again. Curious about what triggered the governor's outburst? Get ready to witness a verbal smackdown packed with protein shake energy. Grab your popcorn, because this political showdown is about to get wild.
You said history shouldn't repeat itself. Donald Trump is now the front runner to be the nominee of your party, of the Republican Party. Given everything you said, does that concern you?
Absolutely not, because being a front runner of one party and letting them dig this hole deeper and deeper is going to make it easy for the Democrats. And
before we move on, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, you don't want to miss this. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, you know him. Action movie legend, former governor of California, the man who turned "I'll be back" into a life motto, mostly for gyms and some questionable sequels. But lately, he wasn't flexing his muscles or saving the world from killer robots. Oh no, this time, he set his sights on an even bigger threat to civilization as we know it. Donald J. Trump.
Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president.
Trump, but not in the usual celebrity I disagree kind of way. Oh no, Arnold went full political Mortal Kombat, finish him style, on live TV. No stunts, no explosions, just a raw, protein-packed verbal smackdown. And let's be real, it's about time someone with actual leadership skills and a working moral compass stepped up to say what most of us have been screaming into our pillows since 2016. Picture it. The cameras are rolling, Arnold's sitting there, calm and confident, maybe sipping on something impossibly green and healthy. The room is serene, the kind of peace that only comes with someone who knows exactly who they are. Then, someone casually brings up Trump. Suddenly, the entire atmosphere shifts. The room grows colder, like a storm is brewing. Somewhere, a tanning bed flickers nervously in fear. And there Arnold, smiling like the final boss of sanity, starts to dismantle the situation, each word landing like a precise strike. It's a verbal destruction, and you can feel the tension building as Arnold prepares to destroy the chaos with an elegance only he can pull off. Now,
President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president.
If you're expecting a calm discussion about policy differences, buddy, you're in for a wake-up call. This wasn't just political commentary. It was a public service announcement wrapped up in an action movie one-liner. If Trump's ego were a balloon, Arnold didn't just pop it. He tossed it into a volcano, flexed, and walked away in slow motion. Let's break it down. Arnold kicks things off by highlighting the obvious. Donald Trump's leadership was about as effective as using a fork to eat soup. His time in office? A chaotic whirlwind of Twitter rants, golf trips, and enough scandals to fill a reality show with spin-offs. And Arnold, who's actually run a state without trying to tweet through a coup, wasn't exactly impressed. He straight up called Trump out for being a wannabe tough guy with the backbone of overcooked spaghetti. You know, the type who talks a big game about leadership but folds the second someone asks him to do real work. Remember when Trump said being president was harder than he thought? Yeah, so does Arnold, and his face basically screamed, "No kidding, genius."
Sad to see that they couldn't come up with a new talent, with a new face that is a reasonable, smart, intelligent person that can lead this country in a Republican way.
You think there's no way he would win again?
No.
Then comes the roast of the century, and this time, there's no fire, just facts. And that signature Austrian judgment. Arnold calls out Trump's obsession with appearances. The man spent more time adjusting his hair than he did adjusting the national budget. And let's not even talk about that orange glow. He looked like a radioactive cheese puff for 4 straight years. But hold on, it gets even better. Arnold doesn't stop at just criticizing Trump's image. Oh no, He brings the receipts when it comes to Trump's supposed business genius, aka the guy who managed to bankrupt a casino. A casino. Do you even know how hard that is? It's like burning water. It's like getting kicked out of your own scam. It's performance art in failure. Then Arnold brings the hammer down on the idea that Trump is some kind of man of the people hero. Spoiler alert, billionaires who ride around in gold-plated elevators are not exactly just like us. Trump's idea of being relatable? Eating a fast food burger on Air Force One while screaming about windmills. He's less of a populist and more of a pop culture villain with a golf cart.
Country. You're the president of the United States, you shouldn't do that. I mean, what's the matter with you? I mean, whatever happened to the strong words or to the strength of Ronald Reagan when he stood there at the Berlin Wall and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down.
And just when you think Arnold's done? Nah, there's more. He calls out how Trump didn't just fail to bring the country together, he went out of his way to tear it apart like a bad sitcom family reunion. It wasn't America first, it was Trump first, America if there's time. Arnold lays it out straight. Trump didn't care about unity, he just wanted a fan club. The dude ran things like a reality show host moderating a food fight. Disagree with him? You're a traitor. Question him? You're fake news. Sit quietly and nod? Congrats. You're in his cabinet now. Trump wasn't leading a country, he was building a fan base. And loyalty? It wasn't earned, it was demanded, like he was trying out for supreme overlord in some low-budget dystopia flick. Trump took regular political fights and cranked them up until they broke. Suddenly, it wasn't left versus right anymore, it was, you're with me or you're the enemy of the state. He built this weird world where disagreeing wasn't patriotic, it was punishable. And Arnold, who's seen his fair share of actual dictators, had zero time for this fake tyranny dressed up in red hats and corny slogans.
Mr. Trump has been indicted on federal charges, but most of the top Republican officials are siding with him against the special prosecutor. How do you explain that?
If the charges are correct, then he's going to be in deep trouble. But at the same time, I have to say that, we're always innocent until proven guilty. So we'll find out what the courts say in the future. But I mean, if the charges are right, I think that he's going to be in deep trouble.
Arnold really drove the point home that Trump didn't want a government that worked. He just wanted a loyalty cult with executive powers. Every criticism was a witch hunt. Every indictment was a hoax. And every loss? Oh, that was a rigged system. Basically, if Trump were a sports coach, he'd blame the referee, the stadium lights, the grass, and probably the concept of rules itself. Just never the scoreboard. And let's talk about division. This wasn't some accident. Trump treated division like it was his main craft. He weaponized outrage, stirred up conspiracies, and tore families apart faster than an awkward Thanksgiving dinner. He didn't just toss gasoline on the fire, he sold it in MAGA-branded cans and then asked for a tax cut. Arnold made it clear. Trump's America wasn't for all Americans, it was for the ones who cheered the loudest and asked the fewest questions. Everyone else? They were expendable, invisible, or worse, used as villains in his never-ending me versus the world narrative. He made enemies out of entire states, entire cities, and even his own staff sometimes. The guy couldn't even keep a dog, but somehow he expected us to believe he could unite a country.
Why does the President of the United States cut after-school programs and cut from the kids out of their budget $1.2 billion?
And while he was at it, Arnold absolutely demolished the idea that Trump was ever a healer. Healing isn't screaming, "I won," while the country burns. Healing isn't retweeting conspiracy theories while ignoring real crises. Healing isn't threatening governors and mocking mayors like some unhinged Yelp reviewer in a golf visor. Trump didn't heal, he agitated. Constantly, predictably, loudly. He stirred up more drama than a high school theater class with a Red Bull sponsorship. Arnold didn't sugarcoat it. Trump didn't lead with inspiration, he led with intimidation, manipulation, and nonstop self-promotion. He turned every press briefing into a stand-up routine and every crisis into a campaign stop. He wasn't interested in solving problems, he was too busy checking how the lighting made him look on TV. America needed real solutions. Trump needed applause.
Broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol, they shattered the ideals we took for granted. They did not just break down the doors of the building that housed American democracy, they trampled the very principles on which our country was founded. Now, I grew up in the ruins of a country that suffered the loss of its democracy.
Arnold nailed the flat-out absurdity of Trump's whole us versus them playbook. If you didn't agree with him, you weren't just wrong. You were dangerous. You were a radical. You were part of some deep state fantasy he probably made up 5 minutes before going live. It wasn't about policy. It was pure paranoia. It wasn't about running the country. It was about gaslighting the country. Arnold called it for what it was, a national therapy session, except the guy running the session clearly needed more help than anyone in the room. And let's not skip over Trump's magical talent for making every single event personal. Hurricanes, media conspiracy. Wildfires, Democrat sabotage. People protesting in the streets, must be about him. Arnold pointed out how Trump managed to turn every serious, solemn national moment into another chance to whine about himself. While the country mourned, Trump pouted. While people cried, Trump tweeted. The man had the emotional range of a parking ticket. And Arnold didn't let up when it came to Trump's obsession with enemies either. This wasn't politics as usual. This was a full-blown vendetta list, the kind that could give CVS receipts a run for their money. Former allies turned into targets. Judges dragged through the mud. Scientists mocked. Even literal war heroes got trashed if they didn't bow to the Orange Throne. Watching Trump run the country was like watching a Shakespeare villain who'd been dropped on his head one too many times.
Is now firing back. Here's, in fact, what he had to say in a video that he posted to Twitter.
Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
And when it came to law enforcement, Arnold wasn't fooled for a second. He saw right through the whole performance. Trump only backed the whole law and order vibe when it worked in his favor. Cops were great as long as they were clearing protesters out of his way. The military? Fantastic, but only if they stood behind him like statues for his photo ops. The second any of them spoke up or pushed back, suddenly they were losers or disloyal. Arnold didn't even have to say it out loud. His face basically spelled it out. Real leaders don't need props. They earn respect. Trump's whole platform wasn't about ideas, it wasn't about policies, and it sure wasn't about progress. It was pure grievance, start to finish. He didn't campaign on fixing things, he campaigned on being mad at them. And once he landed the job, he ran the country like some bitter landlord trying to evict half the population for not complimenting his tie. Arnold broke it all down with the sharpness of a scalpel and the kind of disgust that only comes from watching someone waste power they never earned in the first place. He made it painfully clear. Trump's strategy was never about lifting America up. It was about tearing it apart and hoping he looked taller standing on the rubble. The division wasn't some side effect, it was the entire blueprint. Unity wasn't even part of the script. It was all about hogging the spotlight, soaking up the applause, and dodging the blame. And Arnold, who knows his way around both politics and the wild world of celebrity, could see the act for exactly what it was.
President Trump promised us that he wants to make America great again. That's not how you make America great. By taking $1.2 billion away from the children and robbing them blind.
Arnold then switched gears into that classic disappointed dad vibe, the kind of tone that cuts deeper than any insult ever could. You could practically hear the unspoken, heavy sigh behind his words, like he was silently thinking, I expected more from a man who's managed to sidestep every shred of accountability like it's some Olympic event. And honestly, if dodging consequences were an actual career path, Trump wouldn't just be the CEO, he'd be the CFO, the intern, and the night shift janitor too. And of course, Arnold didn't skip over the pandemic, not a chance. He called it out plain and simple. While people were getting sick, hospitals were drowning, and scientists were scrambling to save lives, Trump was too busy beefing with doctors on Twitter and tossing out sci-fi level nonsense like he was trying to land a part in Contagion 2: The Reckoning. It was almost impressive, if it wasn't so downright terrifying, how consistent Trump was at being wrong. Like he had a sixth sense for choosing the worst possible option at every crossroads. It's as if he looked at what any responsible leader would do, flipped it upside down, and then added a side of public tantrum for extra flair. That, right there, was the Trump brand of leadership.
Why would he do that? Why would he want to balance the budget on the backs of those kids? Kids are the most vulnerable citizens. Kids are our future. We need them. That's why I said every time that we spend money on those kids wisely.
And you just knew Arnold wasn't going to skip past the chaos of January 6th. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't dance around it. Nah, he stared straight into the soul of the conversation like a man about to deliver some hard truth. And you could practically picture him cracking his knuckles before laying it down. What the hell was that? Trump didn't just lose an election like an adult. He went full toddler flipping the Monopoly board mode. He lit the whole table on fire, shouted "rigged" at the top of his lungs, and whipped his fan base into such a frenzy that they basically stormed democracy like it was Black Friday and the Capitol had 70% off TVs. Arnold, a guy who actually grew up in post-war Europe, has seen firsthand what happens when leaders start playing the fear card, pushing division and weaving lies into their speeches like it's a sport. He's seen where that path leads, and it sure as hell isn't freedom or strength. So when he spoke on it, he wasn't just tossing out another celebrity soundbite, he was laying it bare. Trump wasn't a patriot, wasn't a hero, and he sure as hell wasn't the second coming of George Washington. If anything, he was more like George of the Jungle, swinging from one scandal to the next, except the vines were made of lawsuits and unpaid bills. But the real beauty of Arnold's takedown? It wasn't just for the sake of the roast. Okay, maybe a little bit, because who could resist? But the heart of it was a reminder that leadership still means something, that character still counts, that maybe, just maybe, running the country from the back nine of a golf course while rage tweeting conspiracy theories isn't exactly what the founding fathers had in mind for presidential behavior.
When you size him up, what would you guess that man weighs?
You know, I don't really know how much he weighs. I can tell you one thing, that if you would ask me what should you do for fitness, I would just say run around yourself 3 times. You're going to be in great shape.
I want to ask you a quick question about Donald Trump because, you guys both hosted The Apprentice. You don't necessarily see eye to eye on most things. He listed his weight at 215 pounds. You are one of the foremost experts on the male physique, bodybuilding, etc.
And if you thought Trump's paper-thin ego couldn't handle a couple of late-night talk show jokes, just picture the meltdown when the Terminator himself steps into the spotlight and starts dismantling his entire legacy. Not with explosions or special effects, but with cold, hard facts delivered to millions of people, no filter, no stunt double, somewhere you just know a bottle of tanning spray went airborne, smashing against the wall, while Trump furiously rage-scrolled through his phone looking for the all-caps tweet to fix it. But the real knockout? Arnold didn't have to bend the truth, spin a wild story, or even reach for the usual political jabs. All he did was lay out Trump's greatest hits. The scandals, the chaos, the endless circus of self-promotion, seasoned with a little Schwarzenegger-grade sarcasm, and let the plain old truth do the heavy lifting. Because at the end of the day, Trump's biggest opponent was never the Democrats, the media, or the deep state. It's always been his own mouth. Arnold wrapped the whole thing up the way only Arnold could. No Hollywood script needed. He dropped a final message that hit harder than any action hero one-liner. It's time to let go. Time to stop treating the White House like it's the set of a badly scripted reality show starring a man who couldn't even figure out how to keep a casino, the most rigged business on earth, from going bankrupt. Time to wake up, grow up, and start electing leaders who actually crack open books instead of cracking open Twitter at 3 a.m. So, what's the moral of the story? Simple. First, don't roll up on the guy who stared down killer robots, flexed through Hollywood, and actually survived California politics. Unless you're fully prepared to get folded up like last week's laundry, no detergent, no mercy. Second, if your entire political resume can be boiled down to a thread of angry, misspelled 280-character rants, you weren't leading a country, you were just doom-scrolling your way through history. And third, when Arnold Schwarzenegger sets you on fire with nothing but facts and that signature, unshakable Austrian delivery, you don't fight back. You log off, shut down the merch store, cancel your interviews, and pray the news cycle develops amnesia by Monday. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in Florida, a man wearing a sun-faded red hat is still standing there, blinking in confusion, trying to piece together how his grand comeback tour turned into a full-blown public roasting at the hands of a movie star with actual experience running a state, not just a Twitter account. One minute he's planning rallies, the next minute his reputation is scattered across the internet like confetti at a pity parade. So, the next time Trump stands on a stage and puffs out his chest, swearing he's the best to ever do it, just remember, Arnold said no. The facts said absolutely not, and the entire planet responded with the kind of synchronized eye roll that probably nudged Earth an inch off its orbit. And that, my friend, is how you hit the eject button on the ego of a man who thinks a can of spray tan and a catchy slogan are the keys to running a country. Hasta la vista, delusion. And there you have it, the cleanest, sharpest, most no-nonsense takedown since Arnold first stepped on a movie set. No Hollywood script, no CGI, just raw truth served cold, straight to the point. Because at the end of the day, leadership isn't about who shouts the loudest, who posts the most, or who slaps their name on the most buildings. It's about action, character, and backbone. And when the smoke clears, only one of those things stands the test of time. So if you got a kick out of this breakdown, if you're tired of the same old political circus, or if you just enjoy watching egos get body slammed into reality, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that flexing on Twitter isn't the same as leading a country. Because the more people wake up to the difference, the better off we'll all be.